Morning, everyone. I hope you had a fantastic Thanksgiving. Sorry, here, let me try and fix the lighting a little bit. I'm guessing that you've all slept a little bit since we were working on this last Tuesday. So I am going to do a few reminders here. Most of what we're looking at today is going to be review. There's not going to be a whole lot of new information, so that's the good news. But I do want to go through and add a few pieces and also review what we were talking about beforehand. So remember, before break, we were looking at writing equations of lines. Okay, and we said when we were writing equations of lines, there were sort of three different things that could happen. Option number one is that we could be given, or we can find, which right now you don't need to write this down. You already have this all in your notes. So the only part that you're going to need to copy down is you should all hopefully already have some graph paper that you can use as we're sort of looking and talking about when we get to that part. So what I'm doing right now is just review that's already written down in your notes. So unless you missed it before, don't feel like you need to rewrite it again. Okay, so we said option one is that we can be given or we could find a slope and a y-intercept. And if we were given a slope and a y-intercept, then that told us to use y equals mx plus b. Option number two said that if we were given or we could find undefined slope, then we knew that we were going to use and go directly to x equals, and we were going to fill in some number. Option number three said if we were given, there's an I in there, or we could find a point and a slope, then we knew we would want to use point slope form. Right? Those were sort of the three options that we've been talking about and we've been working with. And this could look like several different things. So we said, okay, maybe we have a situation where I ask you to write the equation of the line and we are given that m equals 4 and that b equals -2. Okay, if that was the case, we would say, okay, I'm given a slope and I've given a y-intercept. So a slope and y-intercept are up here in option number one. So if we're in option number one, we're going to plug into y equals mx plus b. And so we would say y equals, m is now 4, x plus -2, or just -2. And so the equation of our line would be y equals 4x minus 2. Maybe we are in a situation that would say m equals undefined, and our x-intercept is 7. That could also be given to us as a point, so maybe we have like 7, -2, whatever. Okay, as soon as we know that m is undefined, that tells us we want to go to x equals. So we would put down x equals, and then x will equal whatever value we have for the x value, and so this equation would be x equals 7. Then we had our sort of more complex options, okay, where maybe we were told to write the equation of a line where m equals 4, and it would pass through the point 2, -5. Okay, so that was option 3 over here. And that meant that we needed to plug into point slope form. So if we want to plug into point slope form, our y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. This is an ordered pair, x comma y, and it's our first one given to us. So we would start replacing each variable with its matching now number. So y minus y sub 1 is -5 equals m, which is 4, times x minus x sub 1, which is 2. We also then agreed that we couldn't leave our answers in this format. And if we had something in this format, we then needed to solve it for y. So to solve this for y, we said, okay, we'll clean this up. 2 negatives will become a positive. We would then distribute, so that would become a 4x minus 8. Our y plus 5 would just come straight down. And then to finish getting y by itself, we would undo addition with subtraction. Making sure that we were very careful with our signs, either leaving that in our calculator or making sure that we were actually taking negative 8 minus 5, which would give us a negative 13. And so our final answer would be y equals 4x minus 13. So those 3 situations were what we looked at on Thursday. Then on Friday, we added an extra sort of step to it. We said, well, then what happens if I'm not given the information and I need to do some work to find the important information? So maybe I'm asked to write the equation of a line that passes through the points -1, 5 and -3, 11. These 2 points didn't match any of the criteria for our 3 options, right? We're not given a slope and a y-intercept, we're not given undefined slope, and we're not given a point and a slope. However, we can take these 2 points and we can find the slope. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to find the slope. So if we're going to do that, we'll say, okay, our formula for slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. We have 2 ordered pairs. Every ordered pair is an x comma y. We have the first set and we have the second set. So y2 is now replaced with 11 minus y1, which is 5, over x2, which is now -3, minus x1 is -1, right? This subtraction is from the formula. That negative is from the number. Okay, so we could clean this up, or you could use your calculator. Those 2 negatives, right? Subtracting a negative is the same thing as adding. So now we'll do the math. On our denominator, we have -2. 11 minus 5 gives us 6. 6 divided by -2 is -3. That work was only enough work to find us the slope. That didn't even write the equation of the line. But now we have enough information that we have a slope and a point. In fact, we have 2 points. So we could pick either one of them that we want to use. So I'm just going to pick -1, 5. And now I'm going to plug that into point slope form. So I'm going to say y minus 5 equals -3 times x minus x sub 1, which is -1. So here I'm subtracting a negative, so 2 negatives become a positive. And to start solving this, I need to distribute. So -3 times x gives me a -3x. -3 times +1 is a -3. Then I will undo subtracting 5 by adding 5. And our final equation will be y equals -3x plus 2. Okay, so hopefully at this point your brain's like, oh yeah, I remember doing that. We've talked about that. No problem. Okay, because we want to take these ideas and sort of pick up where we left off at the very end of class on Tuesday. So now I want you to go to the graph paper. And we're going to talk about how we can write equations of lines from graphs. I just think it's going to be a little bit difficult for you to try and copy down graphs while I'm not in the classroom and you're watching the video. So I just wanted you to have some graphs. Okay, and then you'll be able to write some additional work out here on the side. So let's say we are given a line. Okay, and we're going to make a couple points here. So I'm going to put -3 on the y-intercept. And then I'm going to put a point at 1, 1. So that's going to be my line. And we're going to say, okay, let's write the equation of this line. Now, there are lots of ways that we can write the equation of the line. We're going to go through and talk about the different options by looking at some different examples. Just like on Friday, some of us saw different things as our initial thoughts. So that's okay if you see different things and do some different approaches here. The key is that you're just getting the right answer in the end. If we look at our options, option number 1 says, are we given or can we find? So we're going to have to find. Can we find the slope and the y-intercept from the information that we have on this graph? And hopefully we all agree to that yes, we can find the slope and the y-intercept. And the reason why we can do this is because we have a good point on the y-axis, right? A good point on the y-axis tells us what our y-intercept is. So our y-intercept is right here at -3. And the letter that we use for y-intercept is B, right? We should know that from our last unit. We can also find the slope because we find slope by counting rise over run between 2 points. So we can look at this and we can say, okay, we rise 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going up 4. That 4 is literally falling right on top of the other 4. And we are running 1. Now, remember, when we're counting slope, if we ever count left or down, we would have to consider a negative. We did not have any negatives here. So our slope would be 4 over 1, or we could just write that as 4. So we were able to find our M and our B. So if we had M and B, we knew we could plug directly into y equals mx plus b. So I then know that this is y equals 4x minus 3. Okay, so once I get that important information from the graph, then it just looks like the regular old problems that we've been looking at, right? M and B, and we just plugged it in. We just had to do some work to find it this time. So let's look at another one. So we are going to make a vertical line. Pretend this is a perfectly straight line. I'm at 2 on my x-axis, okay? So I'm over 2. So if we want to write the equation of this line, again, we're going to have to do some work. Okay, so we're not really given anything. We're going to have to find some stuff. Finding slope on this one, we need to make sure we're really confident on slope of vertical lines. Okay, the key here is that we need to remember vertical lines have a slope that is undefined. And as soon as we get to a slope that is undefined, that means that we are in this situation where we want to write down x equals. And what does x equal in this situation? Well, x goes through 2 on our x-axis. So our equation would be x equals 2. Now, similarly, we could have a line that's horizontal. So I'm putting this horizontal line at -6. So here we actually could be a little bit more creative, and we could say, okay, I know this is crossing -6 on the y-axis, so I know my y-intercept. And if I pick 2 points, I'm going up 0 over 2. So I know that that's a slope of 0. And so therefore, I could plug this into slope-intercept form, and I could say y equals 0x minus 6. I mean, that would be a fine answer. But hopefully at this point, we recognize that if we have a vertical line, we're talking about an x equals line. If we have a horizontal line, right, it's crossing the y-axis, so that's a y equals line. And this would just be y equals -6. Last one we're going to look at here. I am going to put a point at 1, 1. And then I am also going to put a point at 3, 4. So once we have this line, if we want to write the equation of this line, we're a little bit stuck and we can't go this option that we did up here on the first one. Right here, our line doesn't cross at a nice, neat point on the y-axis, and so we don't know exactly what that is. So that leaves us with 2 choices. We can either name these 2 ordered pairs to find the slope. That would be fine. Or we can count rise over run to find the slope. So either way, okay, if I count rise over run, I'm going up 3 over 2, and I'm getting a slope of 3 over 2. You could also decide to write down the ordered pair 1, 1 and 3, 4, and then use our slope formula, and that would also give you a slope of 3 over 2. Okay, but since now we don't have that nice, neat y-intercept, we're back in this option that we have a point and we found the slope. So we're going to have to pick one of these points. I'm going to pick 1, 1. Those numbers just sound a little easier to me. And we're going to have to go back to plugging into point slope form. So we will plug into our y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. So we have an x and a y. They're our first one. So y minus 1 equals 3 over 2 times x minus 1. Okay, but we need to solve this for y, so we're going to distribute. So that's going to give us a 3/2 x. 3/2 times a -1 is a -3 over 2. That y minus 1 is falling straight down. We will then undo subtraction with addition. And a -3/2 plus 1 will give us a -1/2. And so our final answer will be y equals 3/2 x minus 1/2. So your job now is going to be, you're going to have some problems to work on. Your job is going to be to complete them. I should see answers with work shown if they're required, right? Some of them are going to be the quick M and B. Once you have all of those completed, you are going to log into Canvas and you are going to complete the quiz that's over the work that you just did. It's very similar to last time. It's just sort of that quick check so I can make sure that you're completing it and make sure that we're getting them correct. If you don't finish these in class today, that is then your homework assignment for tomorrow. There is going to be a sub tomorrow, but the sub is going to collect them. So make sure you have that done and complete for class time tomorrow. Have a great rest of the day, class. I will see you all on Wednesday.